and I used to call him Jekyll and Hyde because he was a perfect man when he was sober, handsome and perfect and sweet and kind and loving and hardworking. And then when he was drunk, he was the worst human being on the planet. The most manipulative, conniving, careless, like just did things where I was like, what is, I would literally, what is happening?
Welcome to Recovery.com, where we share authentic stories from influential voices about the joys of life in mental health and addiction recovery, and the journeys that led us here.
We tell our stories because we don't heal in isolation.
I'm Brittany Baynard.
And I'm Tom Farley.
On this episode, we sit down with the fearless and inspiring Chelsea Ocean, a content creator making waves with her raw and unfiltered takes on sobriety, mental health, and personal growth. After losing her partner Dan to alcoholism, Chelsea turned her grief into a mission, using her platform to raise awareness, break the stigma, and help others navigate recovery. With a powerful mix of humor, honesty, and heart, she's built a loyal community, proving that healing is possible and vulnerability is strength. Get ready for a deeply moving conversation about loss, resilience, and the power of showing up as your truest self. Thank you for joining us today on Recovery.com. Today's guest is Chelsea Newell. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Chelsea, this is
pleasure.
awesome. All the way from San Diego. Yeah, Madison's fun no matter what the weather is. So
Says you.
We're,
No, I'm kidding.
we're supposed to say that. Anyway.
It is very pretty. I seen what's the building at the end?
Oh, the Capitol.
Yeah. When I first pulled in, I could see it on the end. It looks really
Yeah, it's
cool.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to dive in the middle of the story, but kind of the beginning of the journey. I would love for you to go into your life with Dan. You know, you've been together for a few years, you're married, but things are starting to change. And on the outside, things are looking really great.
Mm-hmm.
But on the inside and in the home, Dan is struggling. And I'd love for you to just kind of take us into that part of your life.
As you said, we'd been married for a couple years. And for the first couple years of our marriage, it was literally perfect. I mean, people used to come over and be like, how do you guys have such a perfect marriage? Tell us. And it wasn't fake. We didn't fight. I loved him. He loved me. We were super happy. We were just in like the honeymoon stage, but it lasted for a while. In addition to that, though, he was deploying. He was going to training. So he'd be gone for a month, back for a month, gone for 3 months, back for a week. So that was happening too.
And Dan's in the Marines.
Dan was in the Marine Corps. Yeah, he was a reconnaissance Marine.
Mm-hmm.
He did that for 10 years in total before the end. After about a year and a half of being married, I got pregnant with our first child, and he deployed when I was about 4 months pregnant.
Oh, God.
And so when he came back, the life that we had before he left was gone. It was new. I mean, I had a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me at that time, that's when everything started, right? Like that's when things started getting bad. But in reality, like looking back now with the knowledge I have about alcoholism and its progression, we were in stage 3. Like, so there's 5 steps of alcoholism, and you don't really start noticing there's a problem until step 3. But I mean, then you're halfway through. Yeah. So that was step 3 for us, which was the problems. There starts being problems that are
What
evident.
was step 3 in contrast to kind of like the beginning of the relationship?
Yeah. So you guys probably already know this, but step 1 is just binge drinking, like beginning to drink, experiencing drinking. And then step 2 is building a tolerance. So those first 2 steps, if you're not looking for them, especially in our culture, generally the first step happens when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And then the second step happens when you're in college and everybody's drinking, and having a tolerance is kind of applauded in our culture. And so before he left, we were in stage 2, I would say, where he was building a tolerance. But to me, who had not been around alcohol, my family didn't drink. I mean, I never was around it. My dad, I've seen like drink a beer one time in my life.
Oh, interesting.
My mom never. So I was never exposed to it really.
Wow.
And so I started drinking and like drank a little in college, but for the most part, I was the DD all the time. I never liked the way it tasted.
Yeah.
What
And in
about
like
Dan's?
social settings and stuff.
So Dan's family, they were all social drinkers. Which not that I don't think any of them are alcoholics. Like I wouldn't say any of them are alcoholics, but they all drank, and they had a household that was kind of, and I know a lot of people do this. And so I caution you with this mindset of they're going to drink anyways. So I'd rather them drink at home where I can watch them. I'd rather all their friends come to my house and drink.
Yeah, we all had that friend.
Yes, we all had that friend. And unfortunately, you're starting step one of the process if your kid is, because it's not everyone, but if your kid does have that like spiritual malady or that, you're starting it very young. So you're kind of increasing, like getting them on the segue to alcoholism. So Dan was that kid where he was drinking very young. So back to us meeting, and we would go out with friends. And I mean, he was in the military and they all drank in the military. And so we would go to bars and I would always have a beer, and it's not like I counted what he was drinking, and he never seemed drunk, but that's because he had such a tolerance built up. But you don't think that, if you're not around drinking, if you're not looking for the signs, there are none. And so people used to ask me too, like, were there any signs when you were dating or anything to make you think that he was an alcoholic? And I was like, no. And I never noticed anything. He was fine. He never got drunk. But now, like having the knowledge that I have, those were the signs. He could drink 8 beers at a bar and not be drunk, which he was a big man. So I always hyped it up to that. Like, he's huge. Like, of course he can drink.
That's really interesting. Long ago, I did these 2 campaigns, or 1 campaign with the military, and they were trying to shift this image about drinking. And before, their motto was, in this subject was like always on duty. So you can drink as much as you want, but like you're always there. And that wasn't comfortable. So they brought me on board to bring some humor into it. And I'm like, okay, these are real people. Like, but then it was, don't be that guy was the theme. And like, don't be that idiot. But both are this masking kind of, it's really, now that it just dawned on me right there.
Right. And I don't have the solution for what the military should be doing. Right. If you think about it, what happens is they bring all these young men into a place, they shove them in a barracks where it's just men. And sometimes women are the voice of reason in our lives, right? Like we always have our mother, and then we have a girlfriend that kind of keeps us from going crazy. So they have all these men in the barracks, and then they give them stress. I mean, they're stressed.
High stress.
And which is understandable. They need to be. I mean, you're preparing them to be soldiers. Like I'm not saying that those things shouldn't be existing, but there is a disconnect where the only form of relief and like expression that they find is dragging kegs and they tell them they can't have them and all of that, but they do. I mean,
sure.
I mean, I don't know if we've all been, but I've been to the barracks where they've had a keg party many times.
What's interesting is like, in this field is like we, to protect ourselves, build these walls.
Right.
But like the military, like you're seeing, trauma that humans aren't supposed to see. You have 2 different lives that these walls are almost necessary, but yet if a problem happens behind one of those walls, how do you get through? I
mean, we all know that one of the main things that triggers the alcoholism is the spiritual malady. And so we know that these men are being exposed to things and high stress situations, and then seeing traumatic events. And then also their one coping mechanism or their one bonding mechanism, because they don't drink to be losers. Like they are bonding over it. They're having fun. They do it. If you've ever been to like an initiation where they, like you get promoted to the next level or you become a reconnaissance or anything, they do, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like little events where they all get together and they make you drink until you're throwing up. So it's not like they're all alcoholics by any means, but I do think that the culture breeds alcoholism.
Yeah. It's a community that has a specific shared experience with that community. I mean, you were a part of it too as a wife, and being in the middle of all that. How did that community like help? But also, is it a possibility that there was like a hindrance there, maybe not enough help?
Oh, they didn't help at all. Military does not help. If you're an alcoholic in the military, and I would hope things have changed by now, but I would bet that they haven't. If you're active duty and you're an alcoholic or you're struggling with some sort of addiction or mental health issue, you are afraid to tell anyone because you will lose your job, and you will. They'll try for maybe 30 days to help you. And then if you don't buck up and suck it up, you're done.
Does losing your job include like being kicked out?
Oh, being kicked out.
And there's your livelihood.
And they'll try to kick you out dishonorably, because if they don't kick you out dishonorably, then it's questioned why they didn't help. But the thing is, and the colonel told me this to my face, that he had a piece of machinery that he could not use and he couldn't replace it until he was gone.
Oh, that's
in
cool.
reference to your husband?
My husband.
Wow.
And my husband had done 10 years, reconnaissance Marine. He had been on 6 deployments. He had been meritoriously promoted, and he had been on multiple special forces. He was one of the people that like helped with some of the foreign embassies, secure them when that one embassy was attacked. And he was one of the people that helped secure the other ones.
Yeah.
It's like he did a lot for our country. And then the military said, okay, well, he's not working right anymore. So it's time to go.
What about like your friends within the community?
So there were some that were wonderful.
Yeah.
That were very helpful. But, and I don't blame any of them because honestly, we all have our own things going on.
Yeah.
And Dan was very respected, like very respected in the community. He had done a lot. He had been a leader amongst his peers. He was a good man. And so some of them felt like it was disrespectful for them to get involved. So out of respect for him, they kind of wanted me to handle it on my own. And in the beginning, because he was still putting on a very like happy face at work and going to work and doing what he needed to do. He was very, what's the word when you're alcoholic, but functioning. Yes.
Do you think they could tell?
I don't know. I would say that some that knew him best maybe saw that something was off.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were just like, you know, he just got back from deployment. They let him power through it. Like, it's fine. It'll pass. Like it's kind of just like he's readjusting to being a new dad. He's readjusting to coming home and he has a wife and a new baby. Like, give him some time to adjust. And so I did, but that wasn't the best solution. But there were some that just didn't want to hear it. Like, they didn't want any part of it, you know, wipe your feet at the door kind of thing. And we don't want your dirt.
You know, it's interesting. I've done a lot of work with veterans, which is very communal, and they do help each other out but you didn't even get to that stage. You're in this. That's a whole different.
Well, I will say that a lot of the men that he was close with, I would say, were also struggling with some of the similar things he was. Right. And so if I brought it up within our group, there were other people that had to face their demons as well, and they weren't ready for that.
Oh,
so the blind leading the blind. It's like, I haven't hit that.
And just because they hadn't like reached the deprecation that we had, we weren't as, you know, they weren't as far. I would say that some of them were struggling with alcohol as well. And if they faced that Dan was having a problem, then their wives were like, well, all these things she's saying are very similar to the things you're doing.
I talk about that all the time. That, you know, like when in a family, when you have somebody that's just that much more acute, it's like, we're not that bad. Yeah. So I guess we're okay. No.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Like I said, I don't blame, and I don't have like hard feelings towards anyone. I'm not upset. At the end of the day, looking back, I don't know what I would have done if it would have been my friend and she was going, like, I had a friend that in the military, a military wife who she let me stay with her all the time. She would just kind of take me and my kid in and take care of us. So I did have people that were there. But as far as navigating the problem,
the recovery aspect
of
it, people offer the help where they feel they can. But yeah.
I mean, your message, what I'm hearing is it's not out of resentment or, you know, or even shame. It's really about, you know, trying to help and certainly overcoming grief.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a very positive thing, which is a whole different.
Yeah. I mean, when people do ask me about this and I do talk about it, it is always because. So on one side, it's for people who are just starting relationships and maybe not recognizing red flags that I would have recognized if I had heard this story from someone else.
Right.
Or on the other side, it's for that husband or that wife, the alcoholic, who thinks that they can't get better or thinks that it's not that big of a deal and can hear this story and see that, okay, well, my husband was 29 years old and he was a rock of a man that had deployed 10 times. He was 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle, and he died. So there is an end and there is a too late to change. So you have to decide if it makes sense for your family to live without you the rest of their lives or to make the hard choices today.
The biggest, strongest people still need help. Yeah.
So this is all on you, on your shoulders. What was it that were like, all right, it stops here? And and what were the steps you took?
So I took a lot of not good steps. So all the things you don't do in the beginning, I did all those things. So I yelled at him. I fought with him. I tried to control him. I tried to take his credit cards because I was like, well, if he doesn't have money, he can't spend money and he can't buy alcohol. Well, they find ways. So none of that works. All it does is drive you insane. And so the first year in North Carolina where we were, I was like pleading with him. I was, like I said, trying to control him, following him, trying to figure out where he was going because he would disappear for days.
Yeah,
and so
like, what are the things you're trying to control? So he's
disappearing, just straight up gone, like taking the car and nobody knows where he is.
He's not answering.
He's not answering his phone. I don't know. I know what, he's not with any of his friends.
Can't air tag him.
No. And I'm home with a newborn baby without another vehicle and just kind of like, okay, well, if he dies, no one's going to know because I have no clue where he is. And that was the point where I started calling his friends being like, I'm not don't want to drag you guys into it. And I don't want everyone in our business, but I don't know what to do. And I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of worried. Like, can someone go find him? But that started happening at first. Then we moved. We got stationed right about 6 months after his deployment when this started. We got stationed in California. So we moved to California, and that was going to be our fresh start. Everything was going to be different. Wow. Yeah. He was going to be better. He was going to stop drinking. He just was dealing with some stuff from the deployment, but everything was going to be fine. So we moved here, and they put us in a hotel while we tried to buy a house. So for like a month, we're in a hotel, and I have a St. Bernard, 2 cats, an infant, and me
Saint
and Dan
Bernard.
Close
in a hotel room.
Wow.
And it was not pleasant. And so he would go to work during the day and take the vehicle, but then he wouldn't come home sometimes all night. And I'm home. I'm in this hotel with all these creatures.
Well, you had a St. Bernard. Come on.
Yeah, but I didn't have money because I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I would just wait for him to get home. Which I started learning to steal the car before he left. But at this time, I wasn't expecting it, so I just thought he was going to work.
So that's a whole other resentment that's building,
right?
too.
And so the main, I don't need to get into all the details, but essentially things were getting to the point where I felt very out of control of my life. And when you're married, so a lot of people reach out to me on social media and asking about their boyfriends, and I tell them, listen, if this is a problem now, do not get married. Because once you get married, it is your problem. Like everything that, if they get a DUI, it's on you. Like at the time, once I started working again, I would have lost my license if he got a DUI. There are things that affect you directly and you cannot control them. Like this is a human being that makes his own decisions and has his own choices. And whatever, if he wants to get better, he has to choose it. You can never do anything to make him change. Like he has to do it. He's sick. And until he decides to get healing, this is it. And so things were spiraling. I had no control of my life and I was very overwhelmed. And when I'm overwhelmed, my child's overwhelmed. And we finally bought a house. We move in. Things would get better and then spiral and then get better and then spiral. So just enough for me to like hold on, like just enough for me to have hope. Well, okay, he was sober for 4 weeks this time. So he can be sober.
So he did have like little
spouts. Yeah, he would have little spouts. And so I would be like, okay. And a lot of people get into this stage where you're in the 4th stage where you're physical dependence. So he wants to be sober. He doesn't want to drink, but he can't. He can't say no. He has tremors or he would get sweats or he would get anxiety attacks. And so little by little, he started trying to, just drink a little bit and hide it and she won't know. But they can't do that. It just spirals down until you're back in that, I'm drunk all the time stage.
Well, there's another thing in recovery is rigorous honesty. And I always thought like I'm an honest person. Of course I am, but not if you're like, how many beers did you have? 2? Like even the littlest dishonesty you think, but I'm not dishonest, but like that stays with you.
Oh yeah.
Like deep down, like you're not being fully honest, especially with a spouse, and that's chipping away at a relationship. Yeah.
Well, and he would be drunk, and when they're in that stage, they're probably making choices that they wouldn't normally make because the alcohol's kind of taken over, and not that excuses it, but they do. Well, then when they get sober, what do they have? Like you said, you have the guilt and the shame, and you don't want to feel those things, especially as an alcoholic. You can't manage it. You're already managing all these other things that you're struggling with. So what do? You drink again because you don't. And so it's a continuous cycle until you face the underlying foundation of what's causing your spiritual malady. You just keep cycling because when you're sober, you don't want to face the things that you did when you're drunk. So to keep from doing that, you drink again so you don't have to face it. And it's a continuous numbing cycle. And with Dan and I wanted to be forgiving because, I'm Christian. And so for me, I don't believe in an excuse to leave your spouse. Like there's very few excuses in my, like for me personally, not judging anyone else, but for me, I couldn't find an excuse to leave him. I wanted to be the forgiving, loving, supportive wife. And so I wanted to keep staying there. This sounds bad though. I would literally scour the Bible. Like there's got to be a way in here that I'm allowed. I remember doing that so many times. I'd be like, there's got to be one reason in here of something he's done. But anyways, I couldn't find it. So I stayed, but when he would get sober and I would say like, I forgive you. I just want you to get sober. I can forgive these things. I need to get sober. I was a reminder to him of the things that he felt like he wasn't doing. So then he had more guilt because I'm just forgiving him and he knows all the things he had done. Right. And so he didn't want to face me. So the one good thing that could anchor him in his life was the one thing he couldn't face. And so it was just against like him, he was just hitting his head against a wall.
A vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you support, you don't want to leave. You are searching, but you're not going to find it because you know in your heart that's not something you want to do, but you also want like your husband back, right? And you want this. How do you separate those? Like this is my husband, but this isn't my husband.
What eventually was kind of the breaking point for me is that, like you said, and I used to call him Jekyll and Hyde because he was a perfect man when he was sober. I know that sounds silly, but he was handsome and perfect and sweet and kind and loving and hardworking, and he was funny and he was literally perfect. Like if you could create a perfect man, it was Dan. And then when he was drunk, he was the worst human being on the planet. The most manipulative, conniving, careless, like just did things where I was like, I would literally be like, what is happening?
Would it happen every time he was drinking?
Every time he was drinking.
Where'd that guy go?
He wasn't violent. He never put his hands on me or anything like that, which tends to come with alcoholism, which that's how perfect he was, is that he was able to not do that as a horrible drunk. They used to call him the gentle giant, but he never did anything like that. But there was like a lot of emotional abuse and like trauma for me. That was what kept me holding on. When he was sober, I'd be like, that's really Dan. Well, those windows would get shorter and shorter. And then I also would try to convince myself that I was keeping it separate from my child. So which at this time, I have an infant. Okay.
We got that.
And when we moved to California, I had another baby. And so I had just had Calvin and he had open heart surgery. So we were in the hospital. As soon as I had him, he had to have open heart surgery. Dan disappeared. So the day after I had him, we can't find Dan.
After surgery or after
they take my baby. I had him. They take him to open his heart up to give him, because he had transposition of the great vessels. So your aorta and your pulmonary artery are backwards and they have to switch them or you'll die because the blood won't pump through your body. So they take my baby and Dan said he's going to go home, get Everett and my mom, which Everett's my son, and bring them down to the hospital so they can be with all of us. And so I'm like waiting and I'm waiting and the day turns into night. And then I call my mom. I'm like, did Dan pick you guys up? And she was like, no. Okay. Then I call Dan. He doesn't answer. Call him again. He doesn't answer. Then he finally gets my mom and brings her down. And then I don't remember what he was going to go do something for work or go do something. I don't remember. But so then my mom and my son are with me in the hospital and Dan's gone. And we can't find him. Finally, we ended up getting like into the Ronald McDonald house because my son was going to be there for like 7 weeks. And so we're in the Ronald McDonald house and we can't find Dan. So finally I literally had just had a baby and I get a car and I go search for him. I found a charge on our card to an ATM and I go get the address of that ATM and I go to that ATM and it's in the middle of nowhere.
FBI and your postpartum diapers and everything.
I was literally in the postpartum diaper.
Gosh,
okay.
Ice pack sandwich.
Well, because I'm honestly at this point, it was so bad that I was like, he's going to die. Yep. Like he's going to kill someone else in a car accident or because he's drinking and driving at this point. Like he's doing all doing all the things. So anyways, I go search for him. I eventually find him. I'm not going to say where I found him because I don't want my kids to ever see this, but it wasn't a good place.
Yeah.
And he's inebriated on the front lawn of this place because they won't even let him in. So that's how drunk he is. So, and it was like the baby was like a trigger, which he wanted to have another baby. Which a lot of people are like, why'd you have another kid when he was getting sober? When you're in this stage, you try everything. You try you think if I could just give them more good, if I could just put more good in their life, it'll be enough. If I just put a little more good, if I'm a little kinder, a little nicer, a little more supportive, if he has another baby, if he has a more loving wife, if I have sex with him more, like as a wife who anyone who watches this will say you try everything. Because you just think like, this is something bad and I just have to smother it with good.
I can fix it.
But you cannot. So that happened. And after that, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the end. I will raise 2 children by myself. We are done. And I was like, until you are sober for 30 days and actively working to get better, I am done.
This is right after you had your second.
Now, mind you, I've said this exact thing 500 times. Okay. Like I've said, that's it. This is the end. That's, if I see another charge on our card, they just get more sneaky and you get more forgiving.
Did you have any other support? Like
my mom? Thank God. My mom and my dad were very supportive. My dad was supportive because he had been through a lot of trauma when he was young. He was raised by an alcoholic, abusive father. And so he was very empathetic to Dan because he knew that there was something because he always loved his dad and knew that like he was constantly forgiving of his father, of like there was something wrong and that you shouldn't excuse that. My family loved Dan.
Yeah.
Like everyone, I can't say it enough. He was very loved. And my dad, no one looked at him like he was the bad guy. They all looked at him like he needed help. Like he needs help. This man needs help. There's something wrong. And so my dad would talk to him and stuff. And sometimes it would feel like it would help. My dad would, read the Bible with him because he would disappear. And the only person he would answer his phone for my dad. My dad would read the Bible with him and things like that would help a little.
Yeah.
But it would only reel him in so much. And then he'd whoop off the cliff again. And so I made the hard stop after Calvin, and he like fully repented and stopped drinking for 60 days.
How were those 60 days?
They were amazing. But every day I was like, I'm not going to get, I'm not getting my hopes up.
Yeah.
Cause it's, he's went 30 days before. He's went 45 days before. He's went 50 days before. Okay. It's been 2 months and he has not drank.
What was he saying in those 60 days?
He was very anxious. He was constantly doing stuff. I would wake up at like 6 a.m. He'd be cleaning the whole house. So he was managing it barely, which I didn't know then.
Right.
I do know now, looking back, I see that he
was putting in a lot of mental work.
You see a change, if you're like drunk and now you're sober, it's like, okay, that's a change, but that's not the real change. It's not like you're just waiting for the rope to snap.
So
it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
I want that person back.
Yeah. He
changed back to that.
100%. And when you're an alcoholic, and again, I'm not one, so I don't want to feel like I'm overstepping, but when from the outside looking in as an alcoholic, he was always there, but it's like, here's Dan, this perfect person who doesn't, who loves people around him and treats people well and is kind and good. But then something bad happens and it's like this big and it sits on top. And then you pour alcohol on it and it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And so until you start shaving that off and putting it away into boxes that you can manage, it's just going to get bigger. And so when we're up here and he's saying, I'm not going to drink anymore, he's not doing anything about this problem that has grown this big. And he's just carrying it around and carrying it around and carrying it around. And like, we have to put it away.
Or deal with it. The way I say it is, as humans, we've become collectors of trauma.
Yeah.
And we're not even aware of it. And at best, we'd like throw it like down, bury it, like, okay, I'll collect more until we can't keep it down anymore. And all of a sudden, it has to get out and explodes. And people are like, why are you angry? I'm like, for that little stupid thing. I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. We didn't deal with all the stuff that we were collecting until boom, here you go.
And something that somebody might say is small becomes big and bleeds into every little thing.
Every little, very quickly. Becomes
Did you try and find like a facility for him at any point? Like when it came to looking for treatment for him, what was that experience like?
So I didn't look for a treatment center for a long time because one of the main things with Dan is he didn't want anyone's help. He could do it.
Yeah,
he was fine.
I'm wearing the cape.
Yes, I've got this. I can do it. I don't need your help. I don't need their help. I don't need to go to a doctor. I don't need to go to a psychologist. I don't need any of this. I don't want to talk about it. Which if you didn't need help, you wouldn't reach for the bottle because that's the help you're seeking. Yeah. It's just the wrong help. So you're seeking help. It's just poison. So I didn't for a long time. Then I finally, the first person I reached out to my family, reached out to his family. It wasn't the right kind of help. It was somewhat supportive, but it was not the right kind of help. Then I reached out to our church, and while I think they had good intentions, it just wasn't their specialty. And I'm a huge believer in like God can fix it. And I strongly believe that he's fixed things in my life that I could not have fixed by myself. But if that's not your faith, like if your faith is not like God can fix it and he will, you won't let him. Like you have to at least have that foundation. So that didn't help him. I tried to get him to go to, I don't want to say, there was a recovery center in the area that that had a really good retention rate. And I wanted him to go there too, but we knew someone there. And again, he doesn't it's like he didn't want anyone to know him and know he had a problem. And at one point, I mentioned this earlier, but he just Googled centers close to him and then just showed up at the closest place. And they wanted to charge him a ridiculous amount of money to go there. Wow. And it was a resort. So I did
on my dime.
Yeah, no. I did not know of a I mean, like Recovery.com, if I had known something like that existed, I don't know if it existed back then, but if it did, it would have been helpful. But I didn't know that there was somewhere you could go in and say, like, these are the specific things I need, and this is my price range, and I need something in this area. And also, I think that treatment is such a broad term, and people that don't know anything about alcoholism or about the treatments behind it, you don't even know what you're looking for. So when you go in there and you see like all these different treatment, you can go in and read I don't even know what this is. And then you can figure out what makes the most sense or what you feel could be helpful or would be the best situation for whatever.
This podcast is brought to you by Recovery.com. Recovery.com is a place where anyone can find mental health or addiction treatment options specific to them. You can filter by location, price, insurance coverage, therapy type, mental health conditions, levels of care, and so much more. Recovery.com is the place to find mental health or addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
But you know what else is really neat? And particularly for, like what you described, is like when you're at that, you have no knowledge. You don't know anything.
You don't know anything.
And you're talking about somebody who's trained like, I need to know. So that had to be really scary of like not knowing anything about this disease that I have or treatment or whatever, and like Google and go.
Yeah.
Like, so knowledge and getting ownership back of who you are and what you need, and not be at the risk of like asking everyone, just having that control again.
Right. One thing that I get asked a lot from people that reach out to me on social media that are going through something similar is, did you notice any red flags? Like, was there any red flags in the beginning that you could have seen? And I always used to say no. But the reality is, it's not that there were no red flags. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about alcoholism. I didn't know that it was a progressive disease. I didn't know there's 5 stages of alcoholism. I didn't even know what to look for. But now that I know, I can look back and see like, oh, there were stages of like a high tolerance. There were stages of binge drinking, but everyone else was doing it.
Right.
So, and here's the thing, like I said, there are some of the things, like just because you go out and drink a lot doesn't mean you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Just because you go drink with your friends doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. And I don't want it to seem like that's what I'm saying. Right. However, if you're dating someone and you say like, hey, we've drank a lot this week, let's go a week without drinking, and he can't do that or she can't do that, that's maybe a red flag. And that was something that I noticed where back then, like I said, it didn't occur. I mean, he was still kind. He was still good. He never seemed drunk. He was still functioning. He was still going to work. But remembering like there are stages, it progresses. But if you're not aware of those things, that's why it's important to talk about this stuff, because somebody can be, like I was, completely ignorant to it, dating someone who's showing very clear signs of progressive alcoholism and have no idea.
So you talked a little bit about the support structure you had. Kind of go into more on that, because it's almost all the air is sucked out of the room by this, like what's left for me to breathe.
Oh, for sure. And I did feel like that's one of the things I talk about a lot, is the loss of control of your life when you're married. And I had so much focus on my kids because I had 2 young kids at the time, and I'm trying to fix my husband, but I'm also trying to shelter my kids from this because I don't believe in, like, at the end of the day, he's a grown man and they're little babies and I'm responsible for them. Like, once they came to this world, like, I care for you and I love you and I'll support you, but I can only do so much because I will not put them at risk for you.
Right.
You can protect yourself. They cannot. And so after the 60 days, he started drinking again, which is how this ended up, like, kind of finding a head. Through all of this, my mom, I was talking to her a lot, and she put up a second mortgage on her home. She lived in West Virginia. She took a second mortgage out of her home, not a second mortgage, like a mortgage, because it was paid off. So she took a mortgage out of her home so she could have money, and quit her job and moved out here and lived with me. And if she hadn't done that, I literally don't know what I would have done when I had Calvin, my second kid.
From West Virginia to San Diego. Oh, wow.
That's right there. That's a good
That's
mom.
saying a lot.
And she lived with me for 2 years until I got back, because at the time I was a stay-at-home mom. I did not have a job. We were living off his income. He was getting in trouble at work. He was about to get kicked out. I am pregnant, and then I had a new baby, and I have a 2-year-old. I'm like, if I literally called my mom, I'm like, I don't even want to ask you, but I don't know what to do. I have a baby in surgery at one point, and then I have a 2-year-old, and then Dan's gone. Just disappeared. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So my mom was here and she literally saved me.
That's so amazing.
She is a godsend.
Big shout out to your mom.
Big shout out to my mom.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
She helped a lot.
You've got your mom helping out. You've drawn this hard line in the sand. Like, this isn't functional anymore. This isn't a thing. Where does that take
Yeah.
your
So
relationship next.
and just to be clear, because people are like, oh, you're so strong. You made a hard stop. It took me 4 years to make a hard stop. So I'm not that strong. Like
we were drawing that thin
yeah.
line every day.
I did.
Until it became a nice thick one.
I gave him so many ultimatums, but at the end of the day, I loved
That's
him
your
and I
partner,
wanted
yeah.
him. So after he got drunk the last time, after the 60 days of sobriety, which is funny because it's not funny, but I literally, when I accepted that he was going to be sober, I like accepted. Oh, it was our 7th wedding anniversary, April 25th. It was also his birthday. We were going to go out to dinner. I got home from work because I had started working again because we were, not sure what was happening. I got home and I could tell that he'd been drinking. I don't know how to explain it. And if you are around an alcoholic, you'll know, or if you've been an addict or an alcoholic, he could take one sip of alcohol and I could see it in his eyes. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like something went up, like something wasn't there.
Yeah.
And as soon as I came in and sat down at the table, I saw it and I was like, oh no. And I like tried to talk myself out of it. I was like, you're paranoid. He's not drunk. He didn't drink. And then finally I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, did you drink? And then he freaked out. He was like, and as soon as he did that, I was like, oh no, he did.
But like during that, did you ever like sometimes you have that like it's there, like you're expecting it, like
I did. I tried, and I never said anything about it because I was so afraid that I would say it and it would make it happen. So I never brought it up. I pretended like we would always been this way, which
but it's
I wanted to talk about the things that were underneath, but I was afraid to trigger the beast.
Like, let's give it time.
Right.
Like, I don't want him to feel like I'm nagging.
Right.
Like, he's doing good. If
he's
I say
doing
something
good.
that could
Right.
set him
I'm
off,
just
and
going to
it'd
be
my
here when he needs me. And that's it. We're going to have a good, happy life. Everyone loves him. Maybe if he sees everyone loves him, look, everybody loves him. Everett loves his dad. Calvin loves his dad.
If you fake it till you make it, maybe it'll just be
but
that
you're
way.
looking, you're so focused on that like event that is coming or think is coming, believe it's coming, but you also want to be focused on like, I want to see that other person coming back to me.
Right.
And like you have this like so much effort on both. You're looking for both things.
It's a balance of fear and hope for sure.
Yeah.
And so he went off the handle at me because I accused him of drinking, which he had been. And then he spiraled that night. So he got drunk. So it was April 25th. He left. He would like leave and come back for a couple days. And then one day we were in our room and something happened and Everett almost got hurt. And it was like that, like someone had like pulled the cover off my face. And I remember just looking at him and like in my head, I thought to myself, is saving him worth losing him? And that's what I thought in my head. Cause I was like,
wow.
I'm going to play this out for so long that one of my children is going to die. Like it was like someone whispered it in my ear. And I remember I just looked at him and I was like, you have to go. You have to get out. Like, you can't be here. I can't do this anymore. Like, you cannot come back here until you're sober. And I was like, I won't leave you. I won't divorce you. I'm still your wife and I still love you. And these are still your kids and this is still your home, but you cannot be here until you're sober. And he left. He was really drunk at that time. And then I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I had Everett in bed with me and Calvin in his like little bassinet. And I woke up at like 3 a.m. and he was pacing in front of my bed and he was talking to himself and he was just coming out of drunkenness. I could tell he was like getting sober and he was saying to himself, like, we can fix it. We can fix it. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I just got up and I was like, Dan, I love you, but there are no more exceptions. Like, you have to go. And he left. And that night I saw a charge on our card for a plane ticket to Connecticut, which is where his parents lived. And so he went to Connecticut. And that was the last time I ever saw him alive. Yeah. And
then he gets to Connecticut. Do you talk while he's there?
We did talk. They were never good. He would call sometimes and say like, oh, I'm going to get sober. I miss you guys. I love you guys. I want to be a good dad. But at that point, I never got my hopes up again after that. I would always say, okay, well, here's the recovery center information. Like, you can go here or you can go to one of your choosing. I don't care, but until you're making no effort. Oh, I stopped drinking. I'm not drinking anymore. Like, I can tell.
What
your
did
voice
his parents
that you're drinking.
say?
I don't want to.
No, that's.
So his parents, I just think they didn't know what to do and they did their best. I just think they thought maybe similar to me where they thought that just let him work it out. Maybe, I don't know, or they were afraid to trigger things, but I think it just kind of, they tried to be helpful in the way they knew how. They did. They would call me and ask me if I needed money and if there's any way they could help the kids. They called the kids. They would come out for Christmas and see me. So they did what they thought was best.
Well, and like it was all the things going, all the train wrecks that you caused. Like, you're going to run to a place of safety.
Yeah.
Where you're not going to run to a place that like
he went to a place
tough,
where he
more
thought he
tough
did
love.
not have to face anything.
Yes.
For sure. He
Lighter
went
accountability.
because at this time, you have to remember, I'm still in a place where everyone thinks it's me. So this has been going on for years, and everyone thinks it's me. One of his best friends came out and stayed with us for a week, and I was like, perfect. Brendan will see, like he'll get it, because all of his friends and I were very close. They were very kind to me. But after a week of being there, Dan had convinced him that I was just an overbearing wife, and he didn't have a problem. And he told me that. And I was like, okay, great. Okay, great. And so, but then he went to Connecticut with his family and friends. And as much as I'm not happy how things turned out, I am glad that they turned out the way they did because one, he was gone for a year. So if it was me, like if I was the problem, I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And two, it was worse. He was worse out there. He spiraled worse. And I don't think it's their fault. I think it was because he was away from consequences. At least here he had to keep, trying to like hone it in and try to get better because, well, I don't want to lose these things. Because I do think he cared about us.
Well, absolutely. I mean, obviously, or your kids, obviously.
Right.
He didn't want to do this in front of the,
right.
Yeah. So
I think he got out there and it was kind of like, well, I have free reign. She doesn't know what I'm doing. And it was not good. I mean, to give you perspective, within 1 year, he had killed himself. So, and he was 28 years old, 29 when he died.
Wow.
So between 28 and 29.
Wow. Your story is like a story of love, but it's also a story of trauma. You're like in one, you've got all of this wonderful thing that happened, that happened in your life, but you also had this incredible traumatic experience. Like, how do you that's usually it's all about the trauma and I'm trying to overcome the trauma, but overcoming the trauma, like I don't want to lose that. Yeah. Like all the good.
Right.
What did you do?
Well, I am a firm believer that like life is not supposed to be easy. I think that a lot of people think that. They think, well, life is bad, everything's bad. But just because bad things happen to you in your life, I mean, like God sharpens his tools. And not that it was about me, but I mean, from my like part of the story, I think that I went through something very difficult, but I never went through it alone. And sorry, I don't want to get emotional, but like God took care of me in ways I couldn't have taken care of myself. Yeah. And so like now in my life, I am so happy. Like I have such a great life. I would have loved to have Dan there, but he's not. But I have like a great family, great friends. I have wonderful children. I have a part of Dan,
Well, you're, and I'm sure that part of your recent journey is to, and I think a lot of people have lost somebody to this disease, is now you get to separate that addictive person to this person that you really
for his kids.
Well, even for you, like I don't want to live with that. I don't want to carry that person around.
Oh, for sure.
And like I want this person
with
back.
You saying that. It's funny that you say that because in my mind they are two different people. Like when I think back, they are like this person. They're different.
I needed to separate that with my own brother. Like, I don't want to carry that. Like now I'm left with this person that like I truly cared about, but I couldn't go there fully with this other person still there. Because that like resentment will pop up or guilt or shame, like, And
I know that everyone has different perspectives, and it's obviously not a scientific explanation of addiction or alcoholism, but a lot of times it happens to people when something very traumatic happens to them. Like, and to me, it feels like it opens a door to a demon in your soul. And so there's like something evil that is latched onto you that was entered you through that trauma. And so when you enable someone who's an addict, you're not actually helping that person, you're making them weaker. So that thing that has attached themselves to their soul is stronger and has more strength and bearing over them. And so until you're able to say like, I'm not going to enable this thing that has taken over this person that I love anymore, that's the only thing that will give them the strength to fight it, because you can't fight it for them. No. Like they have to fight it. There are tools that can help them fight it, but you can't do that for them.
Do you find yourself talking to and helping people more on the, I've been through this, you're going through this, I've been through this, here's what I've learned, or this have like the healing part? Is it the, I can help you, or is it the...
So I would like to help on the healing part more, but people mostly come to me that are in the middle of it.
In the middle of it, yeah.
And it's difficult to give advice because like I said, I did all the wrong things. Like I did all the wrong things for years. I enabled him for years. And it wasn't until, and then on top of it, when I finally did put my foot down and stop enabling him and I made that choice, I didn't get the happy ending that people want. Like he died. Is that what people want to hear?
Yeah.
Like put your foot down and he might die. But the important thing to take from it that I think is really important is that your life isn't less important because you love someone who is addicted or has an alcoholic addiction. Like you're not a like catalyst to this person. You are a person too, and you have a life, and making sure that you protect yourself. I'm not saying because I'm not I put myself before others person. So I don't want to I know that we do advocate for that, but I do also think like you should protect yourself. And a lot of people put themselves in harm's way to try to save a loved one that's in the midst of this. And I don't advocate for that at all.
Yeah. You can't fill someone's cup up if you're empty.
100%.
That's not,
yes.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm like the most moral or
no,
because I will say during this time, there are things that I did that looking back, like if I wanted shame to consume me, it easily could.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted the guilt and shame to take over, there are so many things that I did that maybe made him worse. You know what I'm saying? That I could tell myself, I could say, wow, if I hadn't done that one thing, maybe it would have, but you can't do that because at the end of the day, you are a person too. We're human beings. And like, I was so out of control in my life. I was so emotionally and mentally abused and drained. I had no like concept of what I was even trying to manage. I was trying to do all the right things, but I wasn't, like there was so much going on. And like, there was infidelity because when he was drunk, he was not, so, and I was trying to forgive that like constantly because I'm in my head. I'm like, well, he would never do this sober. Yeah. And I just want him to get like, so there was all these things going on where I made really poor decisions. And at the end of the day, with him dying, with me having that outcome, I could be overwhelmed with guilt, but I just tell myself that nothing I could have done different would have changed the choices that he made. He is a human just like I am. And he chose the things he chose, not me. Like I didn't choose to give up and abandon my kids because I was so sad. Like I could have, but I didn't. Yeah. At the end of the day, like you can't be responsible for the choices of another person. You can only be responsible for the choices that you make. Now, women that have kids or men that have kids that are dealing with an alcoholic or addicted spouse, I feel very strongly about this. You are in control of you and you're in control of your children. And so if you spend so much time trying to fix this person that you risk them, can you deal with the guilt of losing a child because you made different decisions? Or can you deal with the guilt of you maybe didn't handle it perfect, but that person chose and you lost that person? Because I can tell you right now that what I deal with today, the minimal amount of shame and guilt that I deal with and give to God to deal with on my behalf over losing Dan because he chose not to go and get help is way better than if I'd have lost one of my children because I didn't put up a boundary that needed to be put there for them.
And a lot of people do this, like all that effort you do to change that person may create some change, but it's not sustainable. Yeah. And you can't keep it up. And you like put all this effort in and you saw a little bit of change and then it's gone. So like all that effort, like to change somebody didn't achieve anything. And certainly didn't help. Yeah.
Someone said to me once that that alcoholism and trauma is kind of like giving someone a dresser in your house when you love someone and they're putting all this stuff in the drawers and the drawers are overflowing. And at the end of the day, if you don't help them organize the drawers and get them nice and clean and put away to where they can open them and look at them without feeling guilt or feeling upset, all you're doing is letting them overfill them in your house. Yep. It's like you're not helping anything. You're there
in your house,
but you're not, and it's going to eventually overflow to you as well. Like you're not actually helping them go. They need to go through and figure out where things go and put them away and be able to look at them without spiraling.
Right.
And I know that's really hard because we all have trauma in our life and some of Dan's was horrific. So and especially as a man, I think when you grow up and something happens to you as a little boy, sometimes as a man, it's really, really hard to face, especially in our culture. And so none of it's easy, but you have to face it. You have to face it. You have to be able to endure it and know that like, this happened to me. It's not who I am. And like, I have a good life now and I am in control of what I have now. I don't need to carry that around with me.
I strongly believe you didn't need any of this to happen to you to be a strong person. But it takes a lot of work to get where you've gotten, especially after everything that you've been through. What are some of the things that you grabbed onto in those moments over the last few years to help you after the death of your husband?
Yeah. One, I would say number one is God. I mean, I know I say that a lot, but I don't believe that you can do anything without him. So, and there are so many things that are like, I cannot even explain the solution that came to me, and it wasn't of my doing. Does that make sense? Like things happened in my life during all of this where it was not of my control, and there was solutions.
Divine intervention.
Yes. Yep. Many times. That would be number one. And then family. I had family and friends that even if they couldn't help in the situation, they're very supportive of me as a person. And, also my kids. I think some people think that the story is more tragic because I have children, when in reality, without them, I don't know
Absolutely.
how it is. Like I have two beautiful, wonderful children that look like little clones of their father.
That's wonderful. I love
so that perfect man, I made two of them.
Yeah.
They're going to grow
I love
up.
the way you speak about him. Like I'm smiling listening to you talk about him because you light up when you speak about the Jekyll and not the Hyde.
Yeah, the Jekyll.
Yeah.
It was funny too because I was kind of a picky dater, which was like a joke among my friends. I would be like, he has to be 6'4", he has to have abs. I was like so shallow and ridiculous. And then I met him and I was like, look, I told you, you can manifest. He's real. And then it was funny too because I was like, they always used to tell me, well, you just have to accept that he'll be dumb because you can't have brute and brains. They would tell me, they'd be like, you just have to, and I would be like, no, he'll be smart. And then I met him and they were like, oh, he's going to be dumb. He was so was so stupidly smart. We would play Jeopardy and he would know things where I'm like, where did you even learn that? When did you learn about that flower in Africa that heals people like that have like eczema? Like when did you learn that? He was so very smart.
What's wonderful, I'm just thinking of like that's because I'm hearing that story too. Like that's a gift now that you get to give to your kids.
Yeah.
Like that you have that, like, and not this other, like, And
people ask me like what I'm going to tell them. And they know that he died. I tell them, because I'm sure that there are people that are asking this question or having to face this. So when they ask how he died, I tell them, like, you know how your body can get sick? Because I'm explaining this at the point to like a 4 and a 6-year-old. So you know how your body can get sick and sometimes you can't get better. Sometimes there's just not a cure. Well, your brain can get sick too. And there's sometimes not a cure for that. And I mean, it takes a lot of work and it's really hard to make it better. And sometimes people can't do that and they just have to let go. And I said, I tell them that's what so they don't know the alcohol part of it yet. And I don't know when I'm going to share that. I will someday, but I don't want them to have that fear of maybe it'll happen.
Do you know how healthy that is? Like what you just said was like a reflection of like just all this great work. I've talked to a lot of people that still carry that resentment and shame. It's like, you need to know the real story, like of this person, like, that you're not seeing it the right way, or you haven't done that work.
Well, you haven't really healed. And here's the thing, there's a lot of forgiveness that goes in. And when I hear stories like that, to be honest, you have to forgive them, but you also have to forgive yourself. And sometimes when you hear those stories and they're talking about all the things they did, it's not like deep down, it's really that they carry shame and guilt. Yeah. And they're trying to convince themselves that, because they haven't forgiven themselves yet either.
Totally.
And so you carry a lot of pain with that, and you always will. And you can't change anything that happened. You can't change anything you did. You can't change how the outcome affected you or your family or others around you. It is what it is and it's done. And you have to forgive yourself. And all you can do is help people around you or make the world a little better than you found it, but you can't change it.
Well, and one of my favorite sayings is, we tell our stories because we don't heal in isolation.
Yeah, for sure.
And that just doesn't stop. Like, I'll be telling my story forever, whether it's from my own addiction or this loss of a loved one. Like, it's still a recovery that I'm always going to have. And I can't do that alone. And
I bet for you, I don't know if you talk about this, but having it in the public eye the way that your family did, I can't imagine. It was bad enough that a few close people knew what was happening.
Oh, yeah. No, it was.
But the whole world knowing?
For some reason, I just knew, as I said, I needed to talk about it. It was so out there and traumatic, and I needed to talk about it. And I see members of my family that haven't done that. Yeah. And I still see them carrying that pain. That hurts, but I can't heal them. Right. I can only do this. And that's why I do that. And that's why I feel the same about family members, where I do know some that don't talk about it. And I try really hard to talk about Dan a lot. I talk about Dan with my kids. Like,
one time Calvin went to school and they did like a Father's Day thing. And the teacher texted me and was like, I didn't know Calvin's dad passed away. You should have told me. And I was like, why would I tell you that? It didn't just happen. Like his dad passed away. I was trying to send him with like a shirt or, and like, I was like, what a wild thing to say. And she was like, well, we did Father's Day stuff today. I'm like, he has a dad. He's passed away, but he has a father. Like
easily celebrate him.
Like he can make a card for him or he can make one for my dad. Either way. But I
don't take that away.
I feel like a lot of people, like when someone dies or someone loses a parent, it's like, okay, well, don't bring him up. It's like, I'm not doing that. It's not healthy. That's not a healing mechanism.
He deserved to
my kids talk about our dad. I tell them all every time, oh my gosh, my oldest looks like his clone. He literally stands like him. There's no way he remembers that stance. How do you inherit the way someone stands?
So cute.
Wow.
He like stands against the wall like Dan. He does it to me sometimes and I'm like, it's like shocking. But I tell him all the time, I'm like, you look just like your dad. You stand like your dad. You talk like your dad because it's important to do that. And I do notice sometimes when we're around certain family members that because I do it with them too. Sometimes I can't tell if it makes them uncomfortable and it makes me sad. Because I want them to be able to talk about him and remember the good things about him.
My mom says that once in a while. She's like, oh, you remind me of your father. You're at his age. You have the same hair loss. I'm like, okay. Thanks.
About his mom and she had hair loss.
Glad I'm reminding you of that. All right. That's fine.
But I think, I could imagine for your kids that would feel really good.
Oh, they tell me all the time. Do you know what's funny though? Is I've tried to date. I just literally can't.
Oh, yeah.
I've tried to date and my sons will say, is he stronger than our dad? I'm like, no, he's not. Nobody.
Yeah.
And then he'll come over and they'll be like, because they've met one person ever, which funny enough, the guy that they met was one person who I'm still good friends with. And he had been sober for 7 years when I met him. He's been sober for 11 years now. And he is one of the people that helped me understand because I blamed myself a lot. And he like talked about, he helps them do like San Diego Nasty Paw, which is like young people in AA and stuff. And he talked to me a lot about like how alcoholism works and the disease and like how I couldn't have done anything. So some people are really like brought into your life at a time that you really need them. And I think that he was, but he would come over and my kids would be like, just so you know, my dad was way stronger than you.
I love that.
That is funny. But it's funny because in your mind, you're like going, well, all right, I'm not going to do better.
Yeah. My mom says that too. She's like, how are you going to do
How are you going to do better? Sorry. Like, let's reframe that then.
No, I'm just
like,
kidding. I mean, there's lots of wonderful men out there. I'm also not, I'm in a good place in my life and I love my kids and I like what we have. And I'm afraid of like inserting someone and messing it up. So I don't really date or anything now, but it's just funny because it's not even just dating. It's any man. If we're watching a movie, like I love Chris Pratt and and I'll watch a movie and Chris Pratt and I'm like, do you think he's more handsome than our dad? I'm like, no, stop asking me that.
That's so funny.
They say about everything.
Oh, that's funny.
Nice. I love hearing you talk about your life now. That's really great to hear.
Wow.
Yeah. It seems like you're in a good spot. And I love that you are at a place to share your story and everything that's happened.
Yeah.
For people that are maybe that were in your shoes in the beginning or finding out during stage 3 or even in the dating part, what is some advice that you have to give to them?
Yes. So for one, people that are in the dating arc, if you're starting to recognize red flags or signs of alcoholism, I would put like a strong stop on moving forward. That doesn't mean you have to break up or you can't be with them or you can't help them or anything of that nature. But once you are married to someone who's having this issue, you're a part of it whether you like it or not. When you're dating, if it gets bad enough or you become in danger, you can easily separate yourself from the problem. But so I hear women all the time, and forgive me for saying just women. I know that women are alcoholics too, but women reach out to me.
No,
so that's my experience. But when women reach out to me, it's generally like they're engaged and they have brought it up and he's saying he doesn't have a problem, but he won't stop drinking and they're comfortable they want to fix it so they can move forward to get married. And my advice is don't do that. Not that you can't marry them ever or it won't work out, but just if there's a problem now, that is, remember, it's progressive. So it's going to be a bigger problem later. Well, and if he's not even willing to accept that he has a problem right now, then you are setting yourself up for failure and a lifetime of horrible experiences. And I know others who have brought it up and been like, hey, like this kind of scares me. I feel like we drink a lot. And I like the word we, because it makes them feel less attacked.
Yes.
So as someone who has like seen this with other people and myself, instead of you drink a lot, even if you don't, even if you're not part of it, this is the way I would address it to get started.
Mhm.
If it's just something that maybe you're thinking there's a little bit of a red flag and you're not really sure if there's a problem, but there's enough to make you question it, start with, you know what I was thinking? We drink a little bit too much. Like, I feel like we drink every week, every day. Do you feel like that? I was wondering, let's just go like have like a sober month.
Mhm.
Let's do that. Let's do it together for like health reasons, or like just, let's just do like a detox 30-day. If they can't get through 30 days without touching a beer or without being very upset about it or having anxiety around it, then I would say that there's probably some sort of, I don't want to use the word problem, but
There's an issue to
potentially,
talk about.
there
It's
is
there.
some, they might be in one of the stages of alcoholism,
Mhm.
and it's worth addressing at that point. But that's a good way to like a good feeler
Yeah.
for if you're not sure, because I do have people come to me, they're like, I'm not sure. It feels like he drinks a lot, but he could just be bored. Like, just because he has a beer every night doesn't mean he's an alcoholic. I will be honest, that's true.
Right. Yeah.
But it could also mean that he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So testing it out with that little feeler is kind of my first go-to
Yeah.
for people.
Absolutely. And then on the other end, for people that may be struggling with addiction or mental health issues, what is your advice to them about recovery that you would give them in 5 words or less?
Healing starts with the first step. So, and that's for across the board, even if you're not an alcoholic or an addict, but mental health issues or
Mhm.
anything that you're dealing with,
Yeah.
that I feel like that very first step is always the hardest.
It's the biggest one.
Mhm. But healing starts as soon as you
well,
take
because,
it.
fear paralyzes us.
Mhm.
So get back past that,
And I know this isn't like a Christian-based podcast, but fear comes from the devil. God does not give you a spirit of fear. So if you're feeling fear in your life, then remember I said that like something has entered and polluted your
Yeah.
soul from something bad that happened to you. And if fear is holding you back, then you have something really special you're supposed to do with your life.
Mhm.
And as soon as you let go of that fear, you're made for something
Well, it's
more.
funny. And
Yeah.
I was at a retreat once at a 12-step, and it was a priest that was running it. And he
Yeah.
said, if you're still feeling fear, that just means that your higher power isn't high enough. Yeah. It's just like dig deeper in the spirituality thing.
Right.
Because
And
that's fear's not.
It's a lot of
holding you
that
back.
too in the 12-step. And the reason that it works is because we cannot do it by ourselves. And you
Yeah.
have to accept that first. I can't, especially, I mean, women do it too, but men are very much raised, especially the current generation of like, men were raised to do it themselves. You're strong, do it yourself.
It's funny. And I'll go there because you went there first. So it's your
Yeah,
fault.
no, go.
But, as I said, coming into the 12-step program with this lifetime and of being faith-based and religious-based, I thought like, oh, this is awesome. I only have to know 11 steps.
Yeah.
Like, I already go, this is easy. Like, I'm like, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
The spirituality thing. And what I realized that even back all my life, when I was praying, there was so much ego in it. I was praying for things.
Yeah.
Give me this. I need this. Give me a better job. And now it's just take this.
Take
I
this.
can't do this alone. Take it.
100%. It's a humility. It comes
Oh
from
my
a
God.
place
There's
of humility.
yeah.
And also, I would say you like said, you seem so happy now. I would say that every day, like I try so hard to focus my life on thankfulness. Like
Yeah.
if you change your perspective of what I need to what I have, like
Mhm.
I already have so much. I'm already so blessed. Like,
Gratitude.
like
Yeah.
instead of I need this. Oh, can you give me this? Like, oh, I just noticed I need this. Like, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for my life, for my kids, for my home,
And-
for my job, for the family, for opportunities. Like,
And-
thank you.
And do you know what that does to you? I know you do.
It changes your
Like,
soul. It
how
literally
you
changes how
feel
your soul
differently.
feels.
Like the whole concept of gratitude.
Yeah.
It was like I would go through life like skipping over like these gratitude moments all day long because I didn't see them. They weren't.
Oh,
important
yeah.
to me. Now I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for that. And I feel differently immediately.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from?
Oh yeah. And with social media, we see what everybody has and we
Yeah.
want. When in reality, it's just like you were fed today.
Yeah.
Like you had food.
Yeah.
You aren't hungry. Do you understand like how crazy that is to not be thankful that you aren't going to go to bed hungry today?
Yeah.
Anyways, this is a whole nother
We are
subject. but-
blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a great
Well,
conversation.
fantastic.
And I feel
Wow.
like ending it on gratitude and the things that we
Yeah.
can be thankful for is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I have so enjoyed getting to chat with you and get
What
to
a
know you better.
nice.
Story.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for coming here. Thank you for braving the cold in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah. I know. I told her, I said, I brought my coat from San Diego and I got here. I was like, this is not a
I know.
coat.
It's like we need to have like some type of parka here because people just ain't ready.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great.
And where can people find you?
Oh, so I have a TikTok and an Instagram account. I need to be more active on both, but it's chels.ocean on both.
Nice.
You can follow me on those. I try to keep it. I do more family-based stuff now, but there is a lot of pinned alcohol content on my TikTok for people that are looking for inspiration or resources or advice.
Awesome. And if you'd like to learn more about Chelsea, you can click on the description in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining us today.